Here we are. We're back.
We're here
We're doing it.
with
Look at
my
this. We were
shirt.
we were
Eric,
away
Eric
from. I
wants one of
cannot
these
stand that.
shirts. Wait, what? I'm sending you one. You love it so much.
I despise it so much. It's just the worst eyesore. Are you making up for something? Is that what it is? You turn 50 and then like now it's colorful shirts. You used to be a solids kind of a guy, right? With a little
Me?
bit of flair once in a great while. You turned the big 50
Mm,
and now I'm looking at that shirt going like that's a cry for
if
something. I
that's
don't
the
know.
narrative you need tonight, that can be the narrative.
I don't
But
know if I need it. I'm literally like repeating, reflecting history back at you.
no, dude.
Like I'm holding up a mirror and now there's like a what is that? Is that hibiscus? What do you got?
Can't see it if I
What
get
is
up
it?
close. Yeah, it's like
Is it like
it's like
palms? Is it
it's
like
like a
exotic plants?
yeah. And it's like a mesh material, like a basketball
No, I'm just
jersey
saying like the
material.
pattern. I oh god, I'm seeing the material now. It really is like this is step one of like 10 steps, and by which the end you're like, Eric, I'm in a bad place. You know what I mean? Like that's step number 10, and you're 6 months into therapy.
Look, I've been in a bad place. Nothing new.
Now you have it, man. You're in a great place.
I am.
Belated
I
happy
am.
birthday
I
to
am.
you.
Thank
I
you.
saw the what do you call it? I saw the photos as you were at Heroes Con. I know that's your birthday weekend. I'm sorry I couldn't join you. We'll have to do it.
We'll do it
We'll have
in
to do a
Seattle
makeup one. Yeah, we'll do one in Seattle.
for
That'll be a
sure.
lot of fun. Maddie's gonna be there.
Yes.
We're gonna have a thing. You know. So
Yeah.
anyway, belated happy birthday to you. We'll have a makeup happy birthday celebration once you
Thank you. Thank you.
get to this side of the world. How was it?
Heroes Con was awesome.
Am
It
I
was.
recording?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
says live
I'm just
to.
making sure. I don't
Yeah.
want to be like 20 minutes into it and going, Sean, I never hit that freaking button.
Yeah. No. I saw it say start recording. I think we're
There we
good.
go.
Heroes Con was great. It was
Okay.
really great. It was their 40th anniversary. They had
That's a big one.
opened up more of the convention center for the con, so
Really?
it was much more spread out. And
But
maybe they did this
by design though,
right.
right? Because of health concerns, right? Yeah. Okay.
I'm guessing that's the case. The aisles
Yeah.
were huge. We had the biggest island of like the essential sequential island was massive.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and like we all had at least a table and a half to two tables individually.
That's great. What a
So
great way to come back. Did they have it last year? I don't remember if they did.
no, this is the first time back since COVID.
That's so awesome.
Yeah,
Congratulations to that show. It's still Sheldon, right?
yeah, still Shelton doing
Okay,
it.
so
Yeah,
listen, I don't know if Sheldon listens to this your podcast. I don't know why he would have any reason to, but in the off chance that he does, uh, Sheldon, thank you so much for accommodating me, my pals, not just us, but obviously all the artists as you assemble them in that show. I am regretful that I couldn't make it because I know that it was the 40th. I know it was I would have bet good money that it was the first time back since all the pandemic craziness.
hmm
And I'm glad that it was received as warmly as it was. I'm gonna guess, right? Nobody was there apprehensive. No, it wasn't a bad
no,
time. It was a good time.
it was a good time, man, and all
Congratulations,
the
Sheldon and team.
yeah, and all the it's an art show, so people are there to buy art mainly, and all those people are excited to be back and getting back to buying art again, and
Yeah.
it was good, it was good, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was, and there was a lot of like really like great talent there to look through their portfolios and get some artwork if you wanted and stuff like
Yeah.
that. It was
How was the
good.
crowd? Was there a good crowd?
They had record attendance, but it felt open because I guess of the spacing.
Sure.
And also they put us way in the back. And like
Yeah.
we were all kind of a little like bummed about that at first, but the traffic made it down there in pieces, so it was never like swarm around our table, but it was steady.
Yeah.
It was kind of
Yeah.
ideal.
Yeah.
Like it kind of was like it was like con light. It felt like, but you were still selling the same amount.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
good,
so
right?
it's like you could breathe, you had room, like it felt good. It felt really good.
Yeah. I bet I felt a hint of melancholy at the idea of that show
You did?
because because well Tim just passed, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
And
you're
I
supposed to be
remember
there.
that was one of the shows in by which I always was like I was excited because at that show Tim was a consistent between that and Seattle because Seattle's is his
Yeah.
hometown,
Right, right.
right? Heroes Con was always the show that I knew I would end up getting caught up with Tim,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
such a chill show, and he's just drawing all weekend, and that's when I could like it's different from a big show like a Reed Pop or a New York
Oh,
Comic Con type or something
yes.
like that, where it's big and you can say hi and there's still an affinity there, but certainly not like extended conversations where the atmosphere allows for it. And the
Right.
idea that there was going to be a Heroes Con that
With
didn't have Tim in it made me a little bit sad,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, sure. And I mean, I think driving when I was driving up there, I remember thinking that, and then I was also thinking like, wow, Jason's gonna have a really hard time. But there was so much positive energy in there, and sales were so consistent. I think it just distracted everyone enough to not like
Oh, for sure. Not to like dwell
not
on it,
to go
right?
down that hole of yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna take a little bit to get used to
I
looking
think
down the
Emerald City is
table.
going to be the hard one.
I think so too.
I think
I
that's
think so
going to be the
too.
hard one for
Yeah,
sure.
because you're gonna be like, my expectation is always either Tim or Tim and his parents sitting there. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
it's what we've grown accustomed to over the what's our relationship with him, 20 plus years, two
Yeah.
decades worth of sitting in this show. Anyway, rest in peace, Tim Sale. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for us.
Most definitely.
You had
Most
you had
definitely.
huge coattails that we rode
We
into
did.
every professional situation that we've ever gone as a collective. So thank you for that. Thank you for
We
accommodating.
definitely did. We definitely did. He was a trailblazer.
He was. He was. All right. So good show. Good birthday. I saw the pictures from the.
Yeah.
You guys went to a
Yeah.
restaurant, and
Cool birthday. Yeah. Had a private
there was a
room.
toast there.
Got a little rowdy.
Yeah.
Dan Panosian showed up 2 hours late as we were
I
finishing.
don't like that guy. I've never liked him.
Yeah.
Right. The fact that we keep like, see, here's the thing. We know that we don't like Dan.
Right.
Right. Like
Right.
every time we see him, I won't speak for you because maybe you have sort of like a um maybe I'm an amicable. I'm being very
No, I'm
generous.
with you,
Just like
Eric. I'm with you.
okay, so I can't
I'm
stand
on
that
Team
guy. So
Eric.
we either of us can't stand that guy. So like we know that we do, but like we keep forgetting. Like we have like convention Alzheimer's. You know what I mean? Like we walk into the place and we're like, I don't know if I don't like you or not. But within 2 minutes of being in the guy's company, you know what it is? It's like his art is disarming. Like you look at it and you go like, this is really good.
Yeah, it
I
really
think
is
I
good
should
art.
like this guy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think I should have a level of respect and affinity and love for this dude. And
Right.
then he opens his mouth
Oh, the
and then you
worst.
go like,
The
I don't
worst.
like you. I do
Yeah.
not like you. I
Well,
liked
his
you
hair
as
too. I don't. I mean that.
yeah, yeah, like do you ever see that old infomercial that they had like a 2 a.m. in the morning? Like the guy who like the slap chop guy who like, like you know what I mean? Like it's like a little implement, a cheap plastic implement that chops up nuts. Like I don't like that guy, and then they go and discover that that guy like does some really bad things, and I can't say it on the air, where you're gonna get demonetized on YouTube. That's the same vibe that I get from Dan. Like if they ever discover like that guy's a bank robber, I'd be like, yeah, I kind of knew it. I didn't know the nuance, but definitely that guy, I can't get
Oh,
along
I
with
know
that
all
dude.
about Dan's criminal past.
All right, just making sure. I don't like him. I'm just kidding. I love that, dude. I
Yeah.
don't know if
Yeah.
how many people listening in on the podcast, either just audio or video, whether or not
I
I
mean,
can do a convincing shtick about how I dislike Dan Panosian, but
yeah,
it
but
is not unusual for him to show up late. Now, did he explain himself, or did he just walk
well,
in
I
like
mean,
nothing
I
was
was
wrong?
texting him throughout the dinner, and
Okay,
at
all
one
right.
point, as we were having appetizers served, he said he was 5 minutes away.
So
Well,
that's
an
a
hour and a
lie,
half went by after that, and
right?
I mean, I know he was with like Andy Belanger and apparently Michael
Mm.
Cho, but Andy and Dan showed up as we were finishing, and so I
Andy
stopped
and
the whole
Dan,
yeah, I stopped the whole party,
yes,
and I said, everyone, because I had already given a speech before,
yeah,
and so I got up there wanting to give another one. I said,
for
everyone,
Dan,
please. Well, no one knew what I was doing. I said, everyone,
yeah.
please raise your glass and toast with me as I say, "Fuck you, Dan." And the entire room in unison said, "Fuck you, Dan."
Right, right.
So that
Well,
was That was worth
It's
it.
what he deserves. It's what's coming to him.
And then I told him I'm gonna send a private message to him and his wife,
Just
letting
saying.
his wife know the despicable behavior he displayed that night.
Did you do it?
No, he got nervous. He was like,
Yeah.
"Wait, are you really gonna do that?" I was like, "Oh yeah, Dad, I'm
Yeah.
doing it." And then I
Yeah.
didn't do it.
Atlanta is the only reason he's anywhere near like subhuman that he is. You know what
I
I mean?
know,
Like
I
he'd
know,
be,
I know. If not for her, we'd have no muscle.
yeah. I really do appreciate Dan showing up, but man, that's like it's like eating foie gras all the time. It's too much, you know?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
only need it in a little tiny bit on a cracker, and then you're like, I need to have something else.
yeah. But yeah.
This guy's gross.
But it was a really nice dinner. We had a great time.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good.
And
Show was good. Birthday was good. Dinner
yeah,
was good. Everybody was okay. That's
yeah. And
awesome,
I
man. Well,
actually
welcome back.
thank you. I actually got drunk that night, which
You
I,
did.
I never do.
Is it
Yeah,
was it like
like
did you say to yourself, I'm 50, I'm gonna get drunk?
I said, I'm gonna drink with my friends tonight. Steph and the kids went up to sleep
Yeah.
after the dinner,
Yeah.
and I went downstairs to the bar and
Yeah.
had some drinks with peoples.
What kind of drunk are you? Are you a quiet drunk? Are you more obnoxious than you are now? What kind of drunk are you?
A lot of people don't know when I'm drunk because I don't act terribly different.
Okay.
Yeah, I might be a little tiny bit louder, but I'm pretty happy. I'm
You're a
not an
happy drunk.
angry drunk. I'm not a sad drunk. I generally am joyful.
You can't say that convincingly. I don't know what that
What?
is. I said you can't say it convincingly. I don't know what that is. Okay, so the reason why I asked about the overall business while you were at the show, can you hear
Mhm.
my kid losing his crap in the background?
Barely, just a touch. It's just a
Yeah,
little
all right.
atmosphere. It's good.
He's all of 3, and he just woke up from an afternoon nap,
Yeah, that's
and his
that's
mom is telling him a lot of no stuff right now. Hey,
right.
he'll ask for like the stupidest things,
I remember.
like candy at 5 p.m. my time, and it's like you're not having candy,
I
you know.
remember. Yeah. So go.
All right.
So okay.
Okay, so the reason why I asked about how business was, as you know, and this is probably something that we'll get into more as we start going into this geography. And I've been contemplating on what it meant for me and my business as well, which is like, we're heading towards a downturn in the economy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And if I don't care what anybody says, I genuinely believe we're in that recession now. What's
Oh,
encouraging,
definitely, definitely.
yeah, but I mean, analysts have these specific markers in place where it's like once it crosses 3 quarters, whatever it is, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Whatever it is that they use as a metric to officially call out that it's a recession. They haven't done so officially yet, but you can just tell, you know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um, and so I was really curious to know if that had impacted people's enthusiasm for going out to shows, buying stuff, and you know
No,
what I
I
mean?
mean, I was worried about that too, and I think it might have been the best con I've ever had personally
Really?
in terms of art sales. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If not
Okay.
the best, it was right up there with the best that was before it.
Well, that's
Um,
good. That's
yeah,
encouraging. It's
yeah,
probably because
and
you're sort of a homegrown boy there, right? Like that's sort of you've been to
yeah,
that show
but I
multiple
do
times. You've
shows
established
around. I normally Heroes is a bad show for me.
really.
Yeah, normally I don't do well at Heroes. There's so much amazing talent there, and everyone's spread so thin. And I'm also so accessible because I do Dragon Con, I do other shows in the southern area, so I
Yeah.
could see like people being like, "Oh, Sean's gonna be there." Oh, no, actually, I'll get Sean at another show because so and so is
Right.
gonna be there, and I'll never see
Right.
them again.
Right.
So typically, Heroes is not a great show for me.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
but this year it was different. But everyone pretty much had really gangbuster sales.
Okay. Good.
I mean,
Well,
everyone I
no, I
spoke
can't
to,
speak for
Jeff.
everybody,
I
but
think Jeff had the best show of his life there too.
sure.
The
Sure. I got
cow.
to catch up with that cat later on. I can't account for everybody, but every person that went to your table, I paid to go to your table. Right. That was an entire sort of effort on my end.
Thank
Make
you.
Sean feel good. Whatever's on the table that's within your means, I'll spot 50% of it. So you're an expensive friend to support.
Well, I
to
know
try to
that.
make you feel good when it comes to like your ego. You know what I mean? So it's like sending like the what do you call it? The agency that I had to reach out to for like random people.
There's an agency for this.
Well, they typically wouldn't. This was typically just like,
You had
you
to
know what I
pay
mean? Like
extra,
you,
didn't you? You had to pay
yeah,
extra
it's
for
an
that.
extras. It's an extras thing. And I said, like, well, there's really no movie. Think of it as more of like a Truman Show thing where we're sending people in and just like having them walk around Sean, you
The
know?
Truman Con.
Yeah, so here's the thing, right? I
Okay.
could only afford 4 or 5 of them, you know?
Mhm.
But I could afford multiple wardrobe changes. So the same five
Oh,
people kept looping around your table with like a hoodie this time and like an earring the next time, like little changes. And I was like, this
yeah.
is too much planning. Sean doesn't have enough wherewithal to know the differences between faces. He's got like
No.
face blindness. He doesn't
Yeah.
know.
I
He's
had
like,
no idea. I had no idea.
right. And he is so thirsty for conversation and company that anybody that approaches his table, he won't even know. You put a jacket on, you could be a brand new person to Sean. He's as close to it like a little tiny infant playing peekaboo. Every time your face disappears, Sean doesn't know that
Whoa, where'd
that
you come
you're
from?
whoa, you were just gone a second ago.
Mm. Oh man.
All right. So where were we? So,
Yeah.
going back to the whole downturn in the economy, right?
Right.
It concerns me as a potentially as a business because
Oh, me too.
I'm thinking about and you and I are both deep, and I say like deep by way of like how we are planning for and executing the stuff that we do. I'm doing a crowdfunding campaign, multiple crowdfunding campaigns for my mini series for Arc Athena. Right,
Right.
I just finished all of the pre-production. Pre-production is like lettering, coloring, editing of the words, right? And now it's in the designer's hands, and they're putting together the cover. I've already set up all the where I could potentially land inside the printing queue for my printers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're always busy with INKPULP instructions,
Yep.
right?
We just launched
So
on the new platform too.
you did,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
It's
Talk about that a little bit.
So we moved. So the videos used to be housed at Podia. So you'd go to
Okay,
inkpulpinstruction.com, and whenever you were going to buy one or go watch one, you go to my site, you click on it, and it takes you to another site.
yeah,
So that was a very clunky thing. And
yeah,
I agree with you. You had said keep people in your space.
in your
Um,
ecosystem, yeah,
and so marketing was having trouble because they were getting plenty of people clicking to buy but not following through, and they felt the whole checkout process was way too clumsy.
sure,
So they discovered Gumroad embeds into your site, so they never leave your site. When they want to
yes,
buy something, it's a click, a pop-up comes up, they enter their information, and they've got it.
there it is.
So it's so that seemed better. Also, Gumroad has an app where
Mm,
Podia didn't. And I've had a lot of people asking if we have an app, and to develop my own app would be awesome. We're just financially not there yet.
yeah,
But
sure,
this is actually a really nice thing to have right now. So,
yeah,
and marketing felt they could be much more successful there. And I think for the user experience, it's much smoother and better there. And so we spent the past 2 months taking everything that was on Podia and building it over in Gumroad.
okay.
And that launched just about a week ago. And then
Congratulations,
Heroes
pal.
Con, thank you. And I just wrote the newsletter like a few hours ago that goes out tonight, telling everyone.
You wrote your own new. Okay, all right,
I do write my own newsletters, yeah.
okay.
Telling everyone, here's what we just did. You're all we're going to send you codes. You can get all the episodes you purchased. We're giving everyone free month. We have a subscription now we also dropped all the prices a lot. So the subscription's like $24.99 a month, and you get access to every single
As
video
opposed to
there is.
what? How much was it previously?
Previously, the subscription was a little different, but it was $50 a month.
Okay,
So we
okay.
dropped
So
it in
that's 50%.
and
Yeah, that's great.
you didn't get access to the guest videos on that other platform
At
either. It
that
was just
tier,
my
yeah,
videos.
okay,
So now
yeah,
you have everything, all the guest videos, all my videos at $24.99 a month, and we dropped the prices on all the lessons themselves. They went
right.
from they used to be anywhere from like 10 to 30, mainly 30. Now they're
Mm-hmm.
down to like 2 to 15 in
Oh, there you
price.
go. So
So
okay, so congratulations on that. But that's what I'm
thank you.
getting at, right? I'm like,
And
we
the
now,
economy was a factor. I mean, I wrote
oh,
that
for
in the
sure.
letter. I was like, with inflation and this recession coming, I want to
Hmm.
make
Hmm.
this work for everyone. So
Yeah.
drop it down.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's the same as before because way back in the day, 2008, back when I was still in the animation industry and we were experiencing that downturn in the economy then, right?
Hmm.
It was explained to me that entertainment, in a way, is recession proof.
I've heard that
Like
before too.
people are always looking for a way to sort of like to get away from the things that's causing
Right.
them whatever level of anxiety, whatever level of stress. And if it happens to be that you are the thing that they recognize as the thing that it helps alleviate that stress and anxiety, they're happy to contribute in whatever capacity. Now, back then everything was a bit more passive, and by passive I mean like, I worked for Cartoon Network, right?
Right.
And Cartoon Network is, they made their episodes subsidized by however many people, however many, whatever the business model was that Cartoon Network was operating under. But ultimately, Cartoon Network was being offered as part of a subscription service when you get cable, right? Things are a little bit different now.
Right.
Well,
That's
they're
true.
they're starting to move towards multiple avenues, but still it's the same. It's different in such a way that you don't get bundled into things anymore. You know,
Right. 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 Well, Netflix
so
is
I don't know how
hurting.
go ahead, go ahead.
Netflix is hurting. I've
Mm-hmm.
heard from a few people talking over the weekend. Shows are being canceled that were about to be put into production.
Mm-hmm.
Pilots that were approved and then canceled. And I've heard that from a few people,
Yeah.
um, that Netflix is hurting and canceling a lot of their the stuff they're developing now.
Yeah, and there are these guys online who, just, I guess, just depends on their policy and their personal agenda is they pick on these super progressive shows that Netflix has greenlit and saying like, oh, look how super woke this thing is. And I don't disagree with them. I take a look at the subject matter and I go like, it's probably not ideal, but, or at least that didn't appeal to me. That's not the show that I would watch, right?
Right. Right.
But it's, them axing shows is not exclusive to those types of programming. They're
Right.
doing it across the board.
Right.
These ones are just getting the highlight because, again, these YouTube channels are
Right.
agenda driven,
Right. Right.
but
Right.
Netflix canceled a ton of stuff, right?
Hmm.
um and it doesn't help, I think, that there are, I don't know, it's just this perfect storm in which entertainment, I think, right now is going through a downtrend by way of like the blockbuster stuff that we've grown accustomed to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For
Um,
sure.
but there is an uptick, I think, in more of the, this is not the right word, but like the more bespoke stuff, which is what you and I are doing. Like
Right.
the reason why, why I was concerned was like, oh, the economy is taking a turn. Definitely a concern by way of people sort of like disposable income. But I'd realize, oh, I'm not part of that. At least, I'm part of that entertainment globe, entertainment
Right.
sphere, but
Right.
I am not part of that. I'm not Netflix. I'm not part of it. I am not part of, you
Right.
know, I am not part of Disney. I'm not part of the people who are really getting severely impacted by the economy. I have my group of supporters and fans who are in it to be the people that help stand up my projects, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said about that, to
Oh, I
build those
agree.
people out.
Yeah, I
And I
agree.
think between you and I, we need to go find more of those people to go like, I really love your work, man. I really
I
love you
agree.
as a creator,
I
and
totally
what you're
agree.
doing, right?
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, I was gonna say something, but it slipped my. I can't remember what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I think that, if I'm getting any sort of like consistent feedback online for the books that I'm doing, for the effort that I'm going through, it's just, it takes time for it to like mature, to sort of
Yeah,
like blossom into.
that that's everything I'm thinking right now too. Like with instruction, it's really about building it right now, and not judging whether or not it's working or not right now. I mean, I
Hmm.
realize, we've got um 15 episodes out, and we are um launching 2 a month, but at 15, it's not a fully fleshed out platform yet.
Right.
I think when we get to 50, it will be. But yeah, it's
Right.
about, it's an awareness campaign. That's honestly what everything I'm doing right now is focused on, an awareness campaign.
Right. Right.
Getting it in front of people so that, and getting them interested enough to buy it, but making people aware that this exists. Now, that being said, and that's why I'm doing so many conventions, is at every con, like I said, I've had a panel. I had one at Heroes, and it was great. But I mean, I feel like I've got a small but very involved and very loyal community who are excited about
Yeah.
what we're doing. So it's
Yeah.
just about growing that. And I'm sure you're probably feeling the same thing, not as small as what I am. I mean, you're doing pretty good, but
I think it's because of the material, right? You're going the instruction route, right? I'm going more down the entertainment route,
true.
and
So
so that's
that's going to mean,
different enough, right?
yeah, totally. And I'm going to have to work to understand how to market during these. Like, it's escapism is one thing that offers some easy distraction from the hardships of what we're all living through. And there's
Yeah.
an element of escapism to what we're doing with the education, but I think it can maybe offer a nice thing to put your mind into, instead of thinking about the bad stuff. And
Maybe, maybe, but another sort of lever or slider that I would really like heavily consider if I were you is that given an opportunity and by which like, hey, maybe there's a level of uncertainty, especially when it comes to guys, and I there's so many stories like this. It's almost like it's gotten to the point of repetitive and like almost like, oh, that's not really unique, but it's enough that's out there that I'm like, but that still doesn't make it any less profound, which is a lot of people sort of sidestepped their dreams of becoming an art, like a sequential artist or just an
mhm.
artist in general, because they couldn't find a way to leverage it enough so that it becomes their full time gig, and so they've got to go provide for the family. They have a cost of living that they had to be really mindful of. Whatever the reason may be, artist just was not in the cards for them, so they never pursued it any further. But in your case, I would just, really lean on that to be like, hey, this is still an opportunity for you to get good at your craft on your own time with fundamental,
Right.
foundational understanding of
That's
how
a good
you can get
point.
better coming from a practical learned space,
And also, if
Um,
people are losing faith in the security of the established job system,
sure.
you
That's
know,
happening too, for
they
sure.
might see it as not as risky to just go do my thing, since my job is doing horribly. I might as well go try something else,
Right. Right. I
or
think
at least
that's
spend
well
some
worth.
time honing my skills. And
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in general, I guess the note that I would give is just to not lean into like the desperate and almost the negative. Negative's not really definitely the more pessimistic angle of like how to promote your work, more like the uplifting part. How can you get, dude? You have this time that's going to be available to you. You had always had aspirations to become an artist. It's not to say that you ever become a professional one, but here's something that you can take on that at least from your unique vantage point is easy to understand, especially sequentially. And I think that's one of the key things that I see that's out that I don't see too much of out there. Whereas like you're leaning heavily into sequential art, you're leaning
right,
heavily
right,
into comics, right? And I say just keep pressing down on that button on top of the positive part of like um optimistic part of like, hey, that's the thing that you put down because you didn't have time for it, you can pick it right back up. Not to say that you ever make money out of it, but at the very least the love for, if the love for it is still there, I can walk you through the tall grass.
yep, yep, absolutely. That's a good point.
I
I
think
just wrote it down.
similarly, that is for me. It's I hear too much conversation about how the comics that they're reading aren't the thing that they had grown accustomed to, and these are the guys who are, I think, in my target demographic of like mid to late 30s, early 40s dudes, right? Who grew up with the same kinds of comics that I used to grow up or I used to read. And now, as I spent like 3 or 4 months just buying as many comics as I could, at least the kind of stories or the kind of comics, the kind of brands that I had an affinity for growing up. And I would read
Before
them,
you
and I go
started
like,
Arcathina, you did that?
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And as I was doing the first 2 months of Arcathina, this really goes down into research. I must have spent easily, I mean, comics being so expensive nowadays for even digitally, right? Which is where I would buy them because I just can't find any room in my house to
Sure.
buy
I mean, that
floppies
makes
anymore.
sense.
And
Yeah.
it would be just so much harder. I want that instant. I heard good things about that. I click on the button and now it's on my iPad somewhere,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
I don't have that barrier to entry that some old school guys do that really want to have the tactile experience in their hand of reading it, but to each their own, right?
Right.
Anyway, that's not really the point. The point is like I read through a ton of comics for the first 3 months, and I was already well into like drawing Arcathina at that point.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I don't know if well, I know for sure that the comics that I was reading were not for me, right? But I don't know if it wasn't for me because that's just not how they tell stories in comics these days. Do
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like times have
Yeah.
changed,
Yeah.
tastes have changed, audiences have changed,
Yeah.
and the thing that I was reading that I'd associated, the kinds of stories that my expectations were that I'd associated with those titles, weren't there anymore,
Right.
right?
No, they're not.
So
They're
I
not.
was like, that that may be an opportunity space for me. Now it's very niche, right?
Hmm.
Because again, there's people who came into comics knowing only this version of the kind of stories that are being told. So I have there's a narrow window, a narrow doorway that I walk through that I'm inviting people to walk through with me. But that's what kind of helped fuel the kind of story that I'm telling with Arcathina, which is like the stuff that I grew up with, not necessarily because I'm revamping it, not necessarily because I'm like, oh, like what I don't like is as I'm well, I don't think it's fair to immediately go like, oh, that's just like that 90s stuff, isn't it? Like that
Right.
late 90s, early 2000s kind of story. Those kinds of comics. And I go, that's not untrue, right? But
Hmm.
it's also not encompassing. It's also not the definitive version of what I'm trying to do, which is more action based stuff. Character development for sure, but definitely not deconstructed to the point of like, this could have been 3 issues.
Right.
This could have been like that type of narrative is what I'm really leaning into. And if, yeah, sure, you can say, oh, that's the 90s stuff, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, I guess maybe, but historically comics has never been about huge bits of deconstruction, like
Right.
it's never been
Right.
that exercise. I don't know why suddenly that's the thing that people are doing now, but I know for sure that's not for me. And I suspect if I want to have faith that I'm willing to bet that I'm not alone in that space,
But
right?
let me ask you this, because I agree with you. I'm not into at all what's happening nowadays, and I do agree we're dealing with some deconstruction. But I always looked at the Watchmen and the Dark Knight Returns as deconstructive
Sure.
works.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you. Well, the Dark Knight Returns is what got me wanting to do comics. I loved it,
Sure. Sure.
and I love the Watchmen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think if it's done well, a deconstructionist thing can work. I think the problem is
Yeah, I think you
we're
can't look
lacking
at
in craft.
well, yes, yes, and it's not exclusively that, right? And this is just me having a theory about it, not necessarily because I've done a ton of research. It's because you've gotten so much. How do you put this? Like, in order for Dark Knight Returns to work, you had to contextualize it in the time,
Sure,
right?
true.
They had never, not to that extent, had never done anything like Dark Knight Returns, right? So you've always had your
Nothing,
standard bat. You
nothing.
can you compare it to what was happening in the Batman books back then,
Hmm.
and then you go and do Dark Knight Returns, and they weren't doing Adam West Batman. They were doing something else Batman, right?
Yeah, and Batman
And then
was almost like on the verge of cancellation. The sales were so poor,
I don't
which is
recall.
why
I
they
don't know.
allowed. No, that's why they allowed this to happen. They
Okay,
needed they from what I understand and from what I've read, the idea was do what you want with Batman, just revive him,
right.
and this is what this is the result of that.
Okay, fair enough, right? I didn't know that in context, but the point that I was trying to make was that everything needs to be contextualized. For people to say, oh, but Dark Knight Returns was so good, and then there are writers now that are attempting their version of Dark Knight Returns, which is like under the blanket statement, the blanket umbrella of like, oh, that's deconstruction, right? And like,
Right.
yeah, but I don't think it has, its lack of success now is ultimately exclusively coming from, oh, deconstruction stories don't work, right? I think they can work. They just need a specific time in which they can work optimally,
Right.
right? And
Right.
then you start going into like people who don't know how to do it well, right? Like,
Right. Right.
so all of those things stack against the books being successful, but at its core, the foundational understanding of these characters and these comics, the trend to tell those kinds of stories. I don't know why the companies allow for that to happen. I don't know if there's a steward inside each company to go like, that's cool, but that's not what we do here. You know what I mean? Like you can do, I'm an X-Men kid. So like you can do your, your sort of like deconstructed X-Men, Days of Future Past kind of stories, right? But you can't have that always. You'll have to
Right.
have the
Right.
baseline X-Men. And I don't know if people have an understanding for that or they don't have an appreciation for it. So they're trying to change it into whatever version that they see, not really understanding their brand. So my
Right.
attitude, so anytime somebody says like, well, X-Men have always been political, X-Men have always been like, yeah, they have. I don't disagree with you, but not to the untalented hand that you're doing it, right?
Exactly.
Like I've
Exactly.
seen Chris Claremont do political, right? But
Right.
it's always sort of like not even done subtly, but it's done with a better execution than they have, right? It's like
Right.
somebody who's like, have you ever seen that movie or that documentary called Jiro Loves Sushi?
No, I wanted to, but I haven't seen it. I know
Yeah,
what you're
I
talking
don't
about.
think it's available in Netflix now, but it's like this small little sushi shop in Japan of this guy who looks and feels like he's 200 some odd years old, and it's a small hole in the wall place that always like I think it's like Michelin starred to the hilt,
Yeah,
but
it
like
is. I think
it's
so.
really really super good. Apparently, you can't get a table any more than 6 months in advance, something like that, right? That's the difference between that analogy that I'm using is like that is the careful, learned, crafted hand of a Frank Miller and a Chris Claremont and a what do you call it and a an Alan Moore type, right?
Right.
What I see now is a lot of like gas station sushi.
Yes, that's a great analogy.
Like
That's
you
so
just look
true.
at like sushi is sushi, right? And you're like, yeah, I guess if you spell it the same, like
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. There's
there
gas
are
station
there
sushi.
yeah there
That's the
are like
comics industry.
if I like squint my eyes enough, yeah, I guess it's almost the same, but the experience is completely different because the person that's making it, not just necessarily the way it's the where it's sold, but the craft that went behind it. I think that's what I'm running into now, where I'm like, I know where you got this from. I know where you got this pastiche of like, oh, this is so deep for you, and you think this is really so profound, but you don't understand how to make this work, right? You're
Gas
missing
station
the
sushi.
mentorship that only keeps you at gas station sushi all the time, and that's where the stories are landing to me by way of quality. So that's my point, which is like I am by no means like that 200-year-old man with like the learned and crafted hand, but I certainly hope that I have a better understanding of how stories work, especially for the kind of stories that I'm telling, and
Yeah,
leveraging that, and understanding the audience. And I think that's key. I think
yeah,
this is where
for
you and
sure,
I
for sure.
still need to have this session of like unlocking the understanding of who our audiences are. And I'm getting data about that now, right? So you
Okay.
couple that with like consistency and time and just being out there. And again, to your point, you're just in an all out awareness slash promotional tour. And so am I,
Yeah, I
right?
am, and I'm also. I mean, to build on what you're saying, is I can see it a lot now. I can see my path to my book now, which I think the last time we spoke, I couldn't see the path. I knew like in my head, here's the path, but the entrance hadn't revealed itself yet because I was trying to get somewhere to where it would. I see the path now, and I realize everything I've been doing with instruction and my artwork, because I'm like allowing all of my love of hip hop to show in my work and my influences, and that's the book I want to do
Right.
is hip hop flavored.
Right.
Um, and so a lot of people now, like I have requests, like I had a commission. Most commissions I get now, they're like, and add that Shawn hip hop flavor to it.
You hear
So
that?
that's
Good.
yeah, I do hear that, and that's the audience I want when I
Are you
launch
sure?
my
I
book.
mean, do you?
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
I do.
Okay, man. I do.
I'm going. Yeah.
It's your career. I'm just
Well,
kidding. I'm gi- I'm being such a dick to you, buddy. Well, it is to say that I still believe that we need to go back into like really understanding who our audience are and build towards that, not the idyllic version of what we wish our audiences are. That's
hmm
something else, right?
but
You
who's
can
actually
once
there?
you have a foundational understanding of who your audience are, catering to that, sort of like fulfilling on that promise, right? Like, hey, I released a book called Arc Athena, and it's action and it's adventure, and it's not necessarily 100% character driven, but you understand what the character's motivations are, so you're not just completely looking at me stepping on the gas the entire time. There is a story behind it. There's people behind it. You can get behind the you can cheer for the heroes, you can hate on the villains, that kind of a thing. And once I have an understanding of that and people have bought into it, there's potential for growth by like, okay, so who else? What else am I not fulfilling by way of like audience? Because these are also the kind of stories that I want to tell, right? And so to
Yeah,
understand that is also just as important because so as a
sure.
creative, right? Like I have stories that I want to tell, and this just happens to be one of them, right? There may be a time when I decide to tell something a little bit different, right? It
Sure.
may not
Sure.
necessarily be action, right? But
Right.
so let's say I go into that space and people are like, wait a second, we've come to know you as the guy that does
Right.
this superhero science fiction stuff. You're giving us something different. And I'm all like, right. And so that's a risk. That's sort of like a
Yeah, and that's the challenge of the sophomore release for the artist.
mhm, mhm,
Some artists in history have created that sophomore release that is a total left turn from what they first did, and
right.
sometimes they have done it well. Can
Yes.
be done, but I think that's difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and it is to say that you have to understand, you have to set up the expectation for yourself because you've accidentally set up accidentally on purpose, set up the expectation for your audience for that sophomore release, right?
Right.
If you go 100, like if I'm drawing Arc Athena now, my next release is like blankets, right? Like super, super slow slice of life stuff. People
Right.
are going to be like, what the heck? Why is Canete doing that?
Right.
And maybe it's a personal story and I fully expect it to be not as successful or what have you. But certainly I shouldn't be surprised when an audience goes like, we were expecting more superhero stuff from you, right?
hmm
So it has to be careful, it has to be planned, it has to be deliberate and strategic. But as long as we have it in our back pocket, that should in concept, but who knows in actual reality and practice, like that should give us a level of confidence because we can already see how the pieces are going to fall and just be pleasantly surprised if they don't fall exactly the way we want them to or we planned it to. So in the
Right.
example that I gave, if I end up doing blanket story, which I don't have that story in me, right? But if I end up doing that and suddenly the readership on this side falls off, and yeah, I'm not moving as many units, but clearly I have a story to tell. I want to be able to do, I want to be able to do that book creatively, to fulfill that creatively.
hmm
And then go knowing that, build on, what has been successful, but also to me, it just shows like, oh, there's another facet to the way that guy writes and the kinds of stories that he wants to tell. Right. It's not always going to be
Right.
you know, a full throttle adrenaline all the time,
Yeah, and Steven Soderbergh is someone who's great at this.
Sure.
He's built a career on doing a Hollywood blockbuster, and then an indie film.
Mm,
And
mm.
he's there's I'm trying to remember the name of a book. It's a conversation between Soderbergh and I'm forgetting way too much. But anyways, it talks about this, and it's a good listen. I have it on my shelf. I can dig it up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a similar path or the similar sort of model, and it's not one to one, but I think just in the spirit of it, right, is like a Dave Fincher for me, where
Oh,
Dave
yeah,
Fincher will do
sure.
one for himself, right?
Right,
He'll
right,
do like a 7, and then he'll do the game for the studio, and then he'll
right,
do something for himself, and he'll do another one for the studio. Where it's like,
right.
I think that's the creative health. Hopefully, it's the creative healthy space that I'll go occupy. I
Yeah,
just
it
think that
seems to
I just think that
be
just generally people need to understand, or it's just you understanding who your audience is, right?
sure,
And
sure.
eventually people just go like, oh, that's just the studio one that he does, or that's just the one that he
Right,
does for himself. That's just the
right.
studio one that he does. Like the fact that we can pick up on that, you know. But it's a slow process getting there, and you have to go make it.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the key things that I wish I got attuned into. For like you're talking about Heroes Con right now. That show is so amazing by way of like accommodating a different kind of fan, because I don't know too many people. Well, we do it. We were at the table and we're doing our mainstream pinups, our mainstream sort of, prints or what have you. But I suspect that's one of the few shows in the country, one of the few events in the country that if we never put up anything mainstream, we'd do just as good. We as far as business is concerned,
I
we'd do
agree.
just
I
as well.
totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, when I think about the stuff I sold, the bigger items I sold were not mainstream pieces.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
So I think looking back now, like as many years as we've done on that show, imagine if I had sort of gotten my shit together and been like, I'm gonna start promoting my book at the show. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna start doing a book, establishing a fan base, with this show's fans, with this show's attendance in mind, because they're the ones that are like really eyes wide open to like, what do you do as a creator? And I want to go
Right.
support that,
I
you
agree.
know?
I agree. Um, well, does this make you rethink your statement of not wanting to do shows now?
No, no, it does make me rethink my statement of like, what's the best way to put it? Like, I still don't want to do shows. I understand the value that they bring. I think more than anything, if I were to like backtrack away from that statement, it's being more deliberate about the shows that I do end up going to,
That's where I am.
right?
That's what I realized.
Um,
Like this year, I'm doing a ton. I don't want to do that anymore. I have to
right.
be very calculating with my choices next year.
Yeah. Yeah, Heroes is definitely up there for me, right? It's just a matter of like whatever's going on in the background. Like my schedule isn't as open as it used to be, where I'm just like, yeah, I'm just gonna go to Heroes this week, and the week after it's like, what is it? There's one this weekend. No, it's like Denver is tomorrow or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that,
Denver's. Yeah, yeah, you're right.
right?
Denver is
So it's
tomorrow.
like,
Yeah,
whoa, that's like back to back. And
right,
so
right.
like I would be able to do that back in the day, 4 shows, 3 shows back to back or whatever it is. I just can't do that
It's
anymore.
brutal.
So
I did that Toronto that
TCAF, right?
TCAF
Mm-hmm.
the weekend before Heroes, and I
Yeah,
like on Wednesday, I was about to just completely combust.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
I need to back out of Heroes. I was like, I'm losing my mind today, and then I calmed down. I was like, just you're fine, just
right,
go do your thing.
right.
And but yeah, that was hard.
Yeah, and the reason why I think is because I have to keep business first and foremost in mind, right? I just
Yeah,
can't be like, it's fun hanging out with you guys, like you guys are great people. Hold on, let me try that with more human. You guys are great people. There it is.
you guys are
Yeah,
great people.
yeah, you guys are good people. I love hanging out with you guys. I love being able to catch up and hang out after hours. It's just that now that I do have this, I believe to be this laser focus of like how to do being able to do these projects and having it be sustainable. I really want to just make sure that whatever time that I spend away from the table is helping to make that happen,
I
right?
totally get
Helping to
that.
like to
I
come up with a
totally get
strategy
that.
of how to make that happen. And Heroes is one of them. I don't know. I could probably count on one hand those kinds of shows that actually people are like there because of the creator, not because of the pinups that are in the
What
background.
other shows do you think fall in line with that? I mean, you can't say. I don't think any of the Read or Fan Expo shows fall in line with that.
What do you call it as one? I want you to join me at this show. Lightbox is one.
I want to go to I was talking. Who was I just talking to? Oh, Ramon's going to be there with his whole Raid setup,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was like,
Swing
oh
by. I mean,
man.
like, come down. I've got a what do you call it? I've got a hotel and
So you're doing Lightbox?
yeah.
That's one I want to get into.
Come on down, buddy. You got a space in the room. I can just change up the room so that there's two beds instead of one, and I could probably finagle a ticket for you somehow. But put it on
Okay.
your calendar. Check out what you're doing that weekend. Come and check it
Okay.
out. Just experience it.
Well, that's what I wanted to do this year was to come check it out. I just wanted to
Yeah,
see it, to
yeah,
know what like I want to be a part of it, but I want to understand it before I sit down there.
yeah, for sure.
So yeah, let's after this when we're done with this or tomorrow we can check out the dates and see about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, so I think that's one for sure. It's just like finding that you want to find your crowd. And I know there's if it was like a level of mass appeal, I always use my good pal J. Scott Campbell. Like J. Scott Campbell's work has so much mass appeal to it.
Yeah, it does.
People can hate on him all they want, but you can't deny the success and the
I
appeal that
enjoy
it
his
has to
work.
people.
I
Yeah, me
mean,
too. Me
there's
too.
plenty of mass appeal people who I can't stand their work, but
For sure.
J. Scott Campbell's one I really
I
like the
think
work.
it's because whenever I see Jay's, short of a few, I can't even remember the last one that I saw that I was like, oh, he's just kind of going through the motions of that piece. Like he has it just exudes joy. Does
Hmm.
that make sense? That you can't
Hmm.
really capture it. There's really no metric for you to be able to say like, oh, the reason why that piece is so good because of X, Y, and Z. Like you look at it and you're like, he just looks like he's having fun,
Scotty's
right?
the
He's
same thing. I see. I mean,
yeah,
it's just pure joy. His work is
right.
just that. Yeah.
He's just having fun, right?
Right.
And
Right.
we can list off all those artists who are just like enjoying themselves going through the process. And I feel like there's an appeal to that. But the difference is that with J. Scott Campbell stuff, it just has a huge spectrum of people that it appeals to,
Yeah. It's yeah.
men and women alike. Like I know plenty of women who are like, I
Oh.
really
Oh.
love the
Hell
way
yeah.
that guy draws,
Hell yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So he gets a lot of flack from people giving him, like an anatomy blah 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 and like
Uh,
okay, yeah, it's you're that's so tired and so old and clearly you're
yeah.
not the audience and
Oh, and the
you're not
people who say that he could draw circles around anyway, so it doesn't.
yeah, it's weird. It's like this, I don't know why people do it, but I feel like it's a whole different environment of people who are out there now who've never sort of done anything for themselves, but instead they'd rather go shit on other people
Right. I think
significantly more successful than they are.
it's a frustration with themselves. They're like, well, if I can see the flaw, I can see all I see is the flaw in my work. So if I see this popular person, I can see the flaw in that work. Well, then I'm smart, and then I should
Yeah,
be
for sure.
working. It's
For
like
sure.
it's a bitterness.
Yeah, maybe, my attitude is that. Well, let me go back to one. Let me go back to my previous point, which is, I wish I had the kind of mass appeal that J. Scott Campbell and his Scotty Young has.
I mean, sure, that would be great.
I would love that. Unfortunately, I don't. I accept it. So now it's going to be it's a bit more, the mountain to climb is a bit more steep, but I'm up to the task
Yeah, me too.
because, and here's something that I think was missing back in the day, is that you have to have the product. And a lot of people do a lot of talking and they
Right,
don't have the product behind them. They don't have the tangible thing that people go, I want to support you. What do you want me to support? Do you want me to continue
right,
supporting like
right.
commissions and like
Sure,
pinups and the stuff that
right,
you do at the shows? Or do you actually want me to support this book of yours? And
right,
once you decide to pull the trigger on like, well, actually it's a book. I'm not going to trade on the cachet of known characters anymore.
right.
Man, the added pressure, which keeps people out of it, keeps people out of the exercise of doing their own creator own book, is
Hmm.
that you actually have to deliver in some capacity.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
here's another thing, and people don't know it because there's too hung up about like, man, every time I step up to the plate because I'm a well-known name, and there's like this expectancy of me, blah blah blah. I better hit home runs every single time. It's not true, right? Fans of your work are so forgiving.
Yeah.
They are if you are genuine, right? And
Yeah.
if you are apt, if you pay them the appropriate amount of respect and understand, dude, I couldn't have done it. If you are humble when you're coming to them saying like, hey, I would appreciate your support on this. And if you are, like I said, genuine and humble and just as transparent as you can comfortably be, man, they are so patient and forgiving. I've never run
Yeah.
in. I That was one of the things that was scratching. And we can talk about this later because we're turning the corner at this episode. But that was one of the things that was really like this uh, uh, an albatross that I put around my own neck of not wanting to do these kinds of creator-owned projects. Is that, oh man, what if it sucks, right?
Yeah, I think that's what prevents. I think about this too, and I think that's what's prevented me for so long from doing it. I
Yeah,
mean, I had a
yeah,
lot of reasons not to do it and a lot of excuses not to do it, but when it comes down to it, it was like I was finding reasons why it wouldn't work, and I
yeah.
think that was coming from exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's identical to where you're coming from, but it's coming from a place of an untested space. I won't run that marathon because who knows what's going to happen in mile 25, mile 26,
Right,
rather than
right,
saying
right,
I'll go run the marathon and go find out, because nothing that can happen is so catastrophic that I can't recover from, because it's just
right,
comics, right? It's just
right,
fun, it's just drawing.
right.
And I feel like that's the hump that I had to get over mentally, psychologically. I'm just going to go do it.
Yeah,
Right. And
yeah,
then it just happened to be that people are incredibly forgiving, incredibly patient, just as long as you treat them with respect. To just
sure.
be like, hey, this is my first project. This is the first thing I've ever written. There's going to be a handful of mistakes, but man, I'm so enthusiastic for you to come and to come and be a part of it. Come and read it. Give me your feedback. Tell me what you think of it. And people have been. They've been. I think they've been as honest as they possibly can be, brutally so. To be like, I don't agree with this page. I don't agree with the presentation over here, but dude, this is awesome over here. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's really fair. They don't bomb on
And
you
not
for the
just
sake
that,
of
it shows
bombing
how
on you.
engaged they are with it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And that's exciting for me. I
yeah,
want to continue to do it. But yeah, so I really believe that it's just you have to go and prepare yourself for success. And one of the things that you have to do, it's critical, it's essential. You can't be successful without it, is to actually have the thing, especially in this space. You have to have the thing that people can support, not just will want to support. That's something else altogether,
sure.
right? You need to give them something that they can support. And
Yeah,
for me anyway, it can't be more X-Men pinups,
right. I
right?
agree.
Because that belongs to somebody else. I can't continue to trade on that.
Right, and I mean, I'm feeling that too right now. Like, just doing cons and doing commissions. I'm very aware of. I need to be at a point where I'm not doing this, and I'm working to get there. But I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right, right. I think it's a natural end to our conversation, pal.
Yeah, sounds like it. We did it.
We did it again. We were off for a couple of weeks, but we did this again.
Yeah, we
What?
gotta do some makeup ones next week and the week after.
Yeah, what are we doing? Are we doing? What's your plan there? I mean, we could obviously take this offline, but it'd be
Well, I
great to
release one a
understand.
week. We haven't had a gap. Like,
Oh, we have it. Okay.
no, 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 no,
Your
no.
release
I'm not gonna
schedule
let
is on you. You just bug me when you start running out of like
when the
videos to
gap,
send.
like now, like we're recording an episode. This one will come out in 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
whereas when we started, we had like 8 weeks. So
Right.
I need a little more fat there.
All right. All right. Well, we'll do that. Well, let me do the outro, and then you and I can talk offline about what the next couple of weeks is. Okay.
Cool, cool, cool.
Is that cool with you?
Yep.
All right. Here we go.